One driver not on that standings page we showed you earlier is the driver subbing for Kurt Busch in the number 41. Regan Smith has had 2 top 20 finishes, but he declared for points in the Xfinity Series with Junior Motorsports. Therefore, he doesn't get Cup points, and it's been a whirlwind February and first few days of March for Regan. Andrew Dowd spoke with him to find out how he's adjusting to his new role as the driver number 41.
Regan Smith, former Rookie of the Year, named this weekend to replace Kurt Busch in the number 41 for Gene Haas and that Chevrolet team.
I know you certainly weren't expecting to drive the 41 this year. Here you are going into your 3rd race. What do you hope to gain from being in this car for however long that is?
Well, the seat time's huge, and it's invaluable. It doesn't matter if it's a truck. It doesn't matter if it's an Xfinity car. It doesn't matter if it's the Cup car. Laps on a racetrack is something that you can't reproduce, and especially racing laps. When you got the full pack out there, each lap you make, even if it's just 5 laps in practice, is 5 more laps than you would have had otherwise.
Have you thought about what you hope to gain with just having the exposure in this car?
Yeah, I mean, for me, that's pretty simple. I'd envision a day when I don't have to be a relief driver or a fill-in driver anymore, and I can go to the Cup races on Sunday and say this is my job. This is what I do every Sunday, and that is the one goal for me, is to go out and do enough to make whoever that person or that team owner is, or that sponsor, whatever it may be, to say, hey, that's our guy. That's who we want to back and want to see him back in Cup again.
To start the race, they wanted the car to be a little bit snug because of the securement and the fact that he has not had much practice, none in the draft.
What's it like climbing into a car that's not necessarily your own?
It's not something I want to experience that, but I've got a little bit of experience at that now at this point, with just having to go on the fly with stuff and hop in other guys' cars. And the thing that has been fun for me is to kind of feel setups that other guys run and see what they look for in their race car, and what that feels like to me, and what areas I like about it, what areas maybe I would try and get something a little bit different. So that's been educational, and that dates all the way back to when I was in the 88 car and filling in for Junior when he had his issues.
You have very big-name teammates. What are those conversations, if any, have you had with those drivers about advice or some insight into running?
Well, they've all been great, and you talk to them and you use them as much as you can to help out. And if there's anything I can offer to the conversation, great. But I've done a lot of listening so far to all 3 of them. Kevin, for example, at Atlanta last weekend, had a good conversation with him about how he gets around that place, because he's so good at that racetrack. And before the 500, Tony, came up and grabbed me, and we had a good, candid conversation about the race and how things could play out. And then Danica has been right there as well. Whenever I have a question, I can go to her and ask her. And their experience within the company and their experience within the series is definitely valuable for me to lean on.
What's your hope for this week in Las Vegas?
Well, our hopes for all of these have been to be up front, and whether that means contending for a win or getting top 10s, that's the goal. I think that's the team's goal every week. That's my goal every week. We've managed to grind out some finishes at the first 2 races of the year. Certainly didn't run the way we wanted to at either of them, but there's a lot of circumstances that have gone into even just getting there and being ready to race, and now it's starting to get a little smoother for me, a little more comfortable, and I anticipate running better as that happens.
So let's take a look at Regan Smith's numbers as the replacement driver, dating back to 2012 when he was subbing in for Dale Earnhardt Jr. Had a ride last year at Watkins Glen, filling in for Tony Stewart. Finished 37th, won 16th and 17th so far in his interim driver role for Kurt Busch. So, Wally, when you look at it, you have to say Regan's doing a good job behind the wheel of that car.
Yeah, and it's hard to do, to jump in a car. You're not familiar with the whole surrounding. So it's hard to do, but it's also a gift. Because, listen, I don't care what you've done, and you're always auditioning. And, Regan goes out there and gets a great finish and even wins a race subbing, your stock goes up. People are going to start looking at you about, hey, maybe that's a potential guy we need in our seat for next year. So anytime you can get an opportunity to do what Regan's doing, it's good for him.
Yeah, absolutely. And a great year ahead of him running for the championship, but also getting this extra seat time, which he said was invaluable.
And it is. And it doesn't matter, what you're driving, but even more so now because the rules, I think, are closer, Xfinity car and Cup car. Those laps are. Anytime you can get it on the racetrack, and every time you get on the racetrack, it helps your always learning something no matter what. So I think it's great for him.
Yeah, he's becoming the super sub of this era, if you will. Well, still to come, Brian